So welcome everybody to our webinar on cycling aerodynamics and bike fit. Today we are speaking with Todd Nordmeyer. So Todd is a local bike fit specialist, and he has fit many working triathletes, and I think he's sort of the OG fitter, and he just opened up a bike fitting studio off of White Bridge Pike, and it's I know a few athletes have gone there, and as usual have had great experiences. They walk away more comfortable and more aerodynamic on their bike. So anybody, feel free to jump in throughout this discussion. We'll talk about all things aerodynamics and fit. But Todd, thanks for joining us. A lot of people are excited about this webinar, and if you don't mind, can you just introduce yourself a little bit? Talk about your background as a cyclist and fitter.
Sure, definitely. First and foremost, thanks for letting me just get on this topic and share my opinion, my thoughts. It's always good to talk about, fun things like these that we're going to talk about today. My background came really from BMX. I grew up racing competitively BMX bikes, and then it slowly just moved into road cycling. And in college, I started competing. And after college, about 94, I definitely just went through the local ranks and started racing at an elite level in 95. And I raced from it to an elite level until 2003. About 2000, year 2000, I started coaching athletes, both cyclists and triathletes. And at that time, fitting, there was a couple of books out there, the Greg LeMond book of bicycling, Eddie Boskowitz, the training Bible, not that training Bible, but the training book of bicycling. That's what it was called. But back then there wasn't much information, and people had questions and people had issues. So I didn't know what else to do other than just try to figure it out myself. And that sort of this led into me becoming known as a bicycle fitter. And since then, I fit about 150 to 200 cyclists a year. And what else? I started using Retool. Retool is a 3D motion capture system. It's really a tool. It makes a fitter more accurate. It makes the fitter more working not so much in a black box. It gives credibility to really what the decisions that I make, not necessarily based on it, but just convey why I'm making decisions. And so it's a nice tool. And I became certified to use that. I owned it for many years before I got certified. But in 2013, I got certified, and I've been using it ever since. And during that time, I opened up Endeavor Performance. Endeavor Performance was a first of its kind training facility. I did that for 14 years, where people would come in, triathletes and cyclists would come indoors and train indoors. And then I just, as you mentioned, I just opened up Nordmeyer Cycling, which is just my solely business where I'm doing solely fits and sizing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So so do you have a retool bike like this?
Yeah, I do. That's the first generation Move. They came out with one that's called the Move SL. Much more SL for probably super light, but it's something that's still 80, 90 pounds, but it's definitely not like that. It has the same concept, but it's not. And that's the first generation, to answer your question. Yeah. I do have a size cycle.
So I'm curious, what do you look for in general? Like when we're using a retool kind of fit, and an athlete is trying to figure out what frame to get, uh, that's one area where I really think that this machine really is powerful because you're not limited by the frame that an athlete has. I know some athletes have a bike that doesn't fit them already. So if somebody walks in and they're like, I want to be aerodynamic and I want to be powerful, like what principles do you kind of think about when you're fitting them on, maybe for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, this comes down to a philosophy, and I would say every reputable fitter has a philosophy. I feel like believe that, and first and foremost, I think power development comes into play, and that's really the fulcrum is your pelvis, and if you can't get the fulcrum correct, or at least in some vicinity of being correct, then nothing else, in my opinion, can be right. I mean, you just can't, you're going into the wrong direction and you're trying to fix things that, really are affecting that fulcrum. Um, so that's first and foremost, is to look at the power development, look at the pedaling efficiency. And usually when you do that, you're looking at saddle height and fore and after the saddle. Um, and that gets into the saddle itself, which to me is the most important component to buy.
Mm.
I can make a big argument. I can talk about that all day, but yeah. So it's power development, pedaling efficiencies first and foremost, and then I'll get into for especially for triathletes is I'll start thinking about what position is sustainable, and
Hmm.
sustainable for each person is different because of the goal of the athlete. Of course, you can get into a little bit of the range of the motion that the athlete has is capable of doing at that time. But sustainability, and you can make that analogous to comfort, and comfort is debatable over time. But sustainability to me is the key, is what we're trying to accomplish here is for a triathlete to stay in aero position,
Yep.
in some aero position. To me, that's the fastest position you can obviously for an aero bike to stay in. And then you can fine tune it. Safety is a big thing for me. Again, this gets a little bit into my philosophy. You don't want to, you just don't want to mess with the handling of the bike too much by trying to fix things. Um, as age groupers, and I know a lot of people can relate to this. Unlike pro triathletes, they have a clean road ahead of them.
Mm.
Your most age groupers are weaving in and out of other age group athletes, and you know, if the bike isn't stable from a because of the fit, then obviously you're not going to be in aero position, and obviously it's just not going to be that fun. So safety is, and that also gets into the sight line, what I call the sight line of the athlete, and of course, and aerodynamics coming into play in all this. Again, I don't try my philosophy is not to compromise those three other things for the sake of aerodynamics.
Hmm.
And again, it's a balance.
Right.
It's a balance. It's also knowing that each person is different, each athlete is different, and one thing might work for one, another thing, and it might not work for others. And just being open minded about it, but at least going into it with to me, some guidelines, some a philosophy, basically, that just guides me to help ensure that I have the best interest of in mind of the athlete.
Do you have saddles that athletes can try out if they visit you?
Yes, I have a wall of saddles. To me, and I think you'll see the video, excuse me, the before and after screenshots that I gave you. You'll see behind the athlete, there's a wall of saddles, and that's not all the saddles in the world. but it's a good selection of saddles. So I do have saddles that I believe that work well for triathletes, and I have saddles that work well for road cyclists. And when I say road cyclists, it could be also gravel, which, it's analogous to that, but definitely triathlete. In that aero position, you need a different saddle. You don't need a road saddle or a saddle designed to be a road saddle for the most part. But yeah, I do have demo saddles. To me, again, the saddle, and I think Wove is a big believer of this, and I is saddle to me is it's got to be right. I mean, not in terms of position, but also in terms of its shape to match the person's anatomy. It's a big thing.
So are you a fan of the Wove saddle? I know some
I
athletes.
am.
Yeah.
I do think. I think its mission is clear. I mean, its
Hmm.
mission is to uh, allow. To me, it's allow the athlete, the triathlete, in a very forward position, and I think he uses it in a context of where the pelvis is matching, hitting the saddle, and I think that's fine. I mean, there's
Hmm.
other anatomical points you can point to, but yeah, I mean, it's a strong argument to say this is where it needs to be. And I believe it's in the range of 84 degrees from the bottom bracket, that angle. Which again, if it's around that range, I think you're putting yourself as a triathlete in a very optimal position to be efficient, and to make that bike go fast. It's if you're too far behind the bottom bracket, being, then you just can't. You're not going to be fast on that bike. A bike is designed to be forward, to tilting forward of the pedal spindle. Those bikes are designed that way.
I know that I think I saw Georgie on here. He's one athlete who struggled with saddles, and then he's all about the Wove. He keeps
Is he?
asking when we're going to do another sort of order of them, but I think
Yeah,
he's
it's a
going to come
great
and see you
saddle
in a
if it
couple months.
works. I mean,
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
yeah, it's not. I mean, there's no saddle out there that's going to work for everyone, right?
Right.
But I do believe I might not have it, but I do believe there's a saddle out there for somebody, for everyone. I think, yeah, that's what I believe, and maybe that's a philosophy of not giving up
Yeah,
for some people.
for sure. And so I know you talked about the kind of the 80-20 rule of aerodynamics. 80% of drag is from the rider, 20% is from the bike. Can you maybe say more about that, and then get into some common limiters you see, especially with triathletes trying to hold an aerodynamic position?
Yeah, I mean, I think 80% is. I'm hitting the median there. Some people will say 70 to 90%. I mean, it's up there, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's if you look from a front perspective, and it's a gimme almost. I mean, you see the profile, of the person, and it's not just the head, it's not just the torso, but it's also the legs, and the feet. But for most of the time, what we can do as fitters and also as just athletes that do triathlons, the key is to try to slim down, whatever we have that punches through the air, to try to just shrink that, either one, shrink it down or shrink it in such a way that it's slicker through the air, if you
Hmm.
want to say that. Um, so yeah, and then the 20% is just the rest of everything. It's we can just sort of sum that up, in my opinion, sum it up to not just the equipment on the person. It is. I'm not speaking to that so much, but I'm speaking more about the equipment of the bike itself. But it's mostly the person, right? I mean, it's that torso and that head, and of course the hands. the shoulders, all that area that's causing a lot of drag.
And I know we'll talk a little bit in greater detail about, new positions on the bike, so to speak, and like the things like rolling resistance and what you're talking about as it relates to the bike slowing you down. But what have you seen? Like, what are the limiters that you see when triathletes walk in and try to get fit? Whether that's limited mobility in certain areas, or what do you consider when you're fitting somebody?
Yeah, good question. And again, this gets in a little bit of my philosophy. You can say it. Yeah, I mean, it's okay to say limiters. I mean, definitely. It's really considerations for
Mm-hmm.
each person, right? I mean, we're considering, this person might have a background of strength training, and his or her delts are just super defined and super tight.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at that and keeping that in consideration to what we're trying to accomplish with the elbow width of the
Mm-hmm.
bike. So there's that. Someone's ability to do a pelvic tilt forward, anterior pelvic tilt. I think that's definitely something that I look at, and I do a couple of just movements in this the movements before I get somebody on the bike and just get a sense of that. Um, I think that's important to know, what the person is capable of doing, and obviously hip flexion is huge, and what that hip flexion looks like. I mean, um, you know, some people just have a general, femoral retrograde, which just means that when they do hip flexion, their hips like to display out,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how that you know how their hips are just moving. So keeping that in consideration, and trying to just accommodate that. That's other things. The big things. A lot of people come in and we make assumption that people know how to efficiently pedal the bike,
Mm-hmm.
efficiently sit on the bike, and most of the time when we sit on a bike, someone who hasn't really been talked through, or at least something like this, they're sitting on the saddle in such a way that it's just the most comfortable position. They're not thinking about anything else,
Mm-hmm.
and I would think the same, because you definitely don't want to be in pain, and that's not good pain or discomfort. So
Right.
talking someone through that, that to me, that's huge. Um, yeah, so it is shoulder mobility. It's also pelvic mobility. Um, and then, you get a little bit more into what the person is, just the knowledge of the person, and just giving them some, I don't know, giving them some feedback, and not that they have to do it the way that I say, but I feel like the feedback that I give them, if it works for them, if they find out it works for them, then great.
So you said an interesting thing about certain athletes maybe not necessarily knowing how to pedal well or powerfully or what have you.
Yeah.
What cues? How would you describe a good pedal stroke? I always think about it through the lens of like, making sure, say you come over 12 o'clock well, and then you push kind of through the bottom of the pedal stroke. What cues do you say recommend athletes think about when they're pedaling, or how should they think about their
Yeah,
actual
there's
pedal
a couple
stroke
of
technique?
cues. Good question. There's a couple of cues that I use. I mean, I don't know, in general, you can say that, and I'm focusing more on from top to bottom, is I'm looking at that lower limb to foot to be around 90 degrees. It doesn't have to be 90. I mean, I'm not looking at, hey, a perfect 90 degrees, but if it's 101, then there's something going on. And that's from top down to the bottom.
Okay.
Um, and that's from the lower limb to the foot. It's the foot does not, especially for a narrow bike, someone who's positioned really forward, you're not going to get that foot flat with the ground. That's that would be someone who's on a road bike per
Hmm.
se. But that's one thing. The other thing I think that helps people is two things that I give cues on. One is I sort of have them imagine if the pedal, if the cleat was attached to their heel, and
Mm.
not so much on the forefoot, and how they would pedal if it was attached to their heel. And I sort of help them a little bit at first. I'll push against their heel as they're pedaling, and that seems to help people get a sense of what that feels like, what it feels like. Another thing I do is just I have someone imagine if they were pedaling a very, very, very small circle instead of pedaling a big circle.
Mm.
Just sort of shrink that down in your mind and what your foot would do if it was pedaling a very small circle, and even smaller than a shorter crank arm length. If it was like a
Yeah.
140, that type small, and those seem to help. Those do seem to help, and for some people it doesn't. But for the most part, it seems like it's those are beneficial cues that I've learned, really just from my own experience, working with triathletes and road cyclists.
I like those cues. I like the cleat at the heel. And is the
Yeah,
rationale there just that, they'll get over the top and the bottom better without ankling too much? And will it
yeah,
activate their glutes?
exactly. It is, and it's you're actually extending. As you imagine. I mean, if you're able to allow that heel to fall down in a natural way, then you're extending your knee more in a good way, as long as the saddle's not too high. But it
Mhm.
does. You're right. I mean, it's you're extending your knee, which is gonna both help your glutes and your quads.
Mhm.
When you're extending your knee, you're working your quads. Excuse me, but yeah, it's to me, it's a better way to getting over the top of the pedal stroke. Um, and to me, that's the most important part is trying to eliminate that transition from coming up to bottom. And that's where you see a lot of people just start chopping wood, per se. They get a little choppy, and it's because of it's not just the ankling per se, but it's definitely a component of why that is happening.
That's a good point. I was talking to a really high level pro athlete, and we were talking about ankling. And I know that a lot of really good triathletes, they tend to have pretty flexible ankles if because it helps with swimming. And it's interesting to think about like like power leakage. If you're ankling, if you're not pushing against a stable platform, or like you don't have that 90-degree bend, it is interesting to think about what types, like you're basically less efficient. So that's interesting, and
Yeah,
it's something to, I think,
I think
pursue.
also cleat placement has a lot to do with
Hmm.
that. I mean, I see again. That's why they're bicycle fitters, and there's things like this that give people some information. But if the cleat is too far forward, then it's more difficult to allow that hill to fall down.
Hmm.
So, and it, if the shoes are too big, that's another issue, right? You can't get that cleat far back enough for that person to do some good pedaling mechanics.
Hmm. Makes sense. So do you like
Yeah,
to kind of pull that cleat back closer to the middle of the foot? You generally
yeah,
advocate that?
yeah.
Yeah,
I
I like
do.
that
I
too.
do put more aft. I have my system. I think again, any good bicycle fitter has his or her system, but I find the midline between the first and fifth metatarsal,
Mm.
and that's where I will set the cleat to try to get that pedal spindle at that spot. And there's the give and take there. I mean, in terms of where it needs to be, but that's in general, that's where I start.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on anything we talked about so far? Nope. Then I guess we're ready to.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Where is this bike fit located?
But where is my
Todd, yeah.
business? Yeah, it's located off of Harding Pike, which is West End. So I'm in Nashville,
Oh, okay.
yeah, West Nashville.
Cool.
Good question. Where are you, Kyle?
I'm in Ohio.
Okay.
I
What
just
part?
started. I'm in Canton. I'm like an hour south of Cleveland.
Yeah,
Becca Schultz is my coach.
Nice.
yeah, nice. Yeah,
Well, you should come on down and have a make a training weekend out of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, I'm about to buy my first triathlon bike, so I want to make sure it's like done properly and everything.
yeah. I would definitely make it. See, I know there used to be a guy in Cincinnati that was really good, but I heard he recently retired. For what that's worth, the nugget of wisdom. But yeah, I definitely would recommend you see and experience somebody who's uh, can get you on a size bike and uh, take you through that process. It's a great learning process, and
Cool. I will do that.
so now moving on, I know that this section is definitely something that many athletes love to think about, and it's basically triathlon bike fit trends. And I put in three kind of interesting positions that are representative of kind of what we're talking about. So upper left right here, this is Ghana. He is the hour record. So he went the farthest out of anybody ever in 60 minutes. I think he still has the record. And you can kind of see his position here, sort of raised, tilted up aero bars. Obviously, he has to stay within UCI regulations as it relates to fit, so kind of unique.
yeah, the tilt can't be so much, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And then this is Jan, obviously, arguably the GOAT in triathlon. He had a more of a, up through the end of his career, a year or two ago, he had I would say, a more traditional fit where flat back, resting on the skeleton, flat uh, arms. And, many athletes, they in fact do test fastest in this position. And then here on the right is Magnus, one of the Uber cyclists in triathlon now. I think he might have the bike course, like the Ironman bike record. I don't know. He's generally thought of as the best, and he kind of brought, I think, into popularity a almost like a Superman like position. Obviously, he's really
hmm
tall, but he's really long up here, getting his hands out very far. And, we're seeing this a little bit more uh, nowadays, not with everybody, but, just as a starting point to like anchor what we're talking about. I think it's interesting to maybe highlight these guys. But, what do you think about kind of new trends and bike fitting, or maybe not new trends, just like what works when you're not limited by UCI rules, etc.
yeah. What what works? I mean, the new trends are really interesting, and they're again, what pro triathletes are looking for. One is how to be faster, right, and with the same power output, and that it seems like getting your hands forward, at least to your chin, at least to
Mm-hmm.
your chin is a faster position. So I think that's a positive thing. I noticed personally in my experience is to accomplish that and to get the elbows in, it sort of works in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
The more forward you can do that and get your arms, get them further, your elbows further inward, it takes that muscle strain off the lats. Excuse me, not the lats, but the delts. Uh, and so it's a sustainable position. Unlike if you were to try to just put the arm elbows into, together as closely as you can and be choked. Of course, there's people that are more mobile than others, but it's easier to do, and especially for an Ironman or even a half distance length events, being somewhat comfortable. And again, I'm going to use the word sustainability position. I think having that position it's a good one. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, except for one thing. I would say it does affect the handling of the bike. And again, it slows the handling down. It definitely slows the handling of the bike down. So the athlete may feel like, hey, I'm not as, I don't know, as responsive to things, and you might come out of aero position for that reason. That would be the only drawback that I see. But I think the market, for bikes, I think we're going to see bikes come out, maybe not in 2026, but maybe 2027. Of course, I'm just talking, but they're a year to 2 years out away from the trends. It seems like, but a longer, definitely a longer reach. The way that, and you see this. I mean, you see this. You see where they're doing extenders, and you see the third party, manufacturers out there building extenders for their bars to get the person more pad reach.
Yeah, it's funny because I was getting a new frame and I was looking at my reach, and I'm 5'11", and my reach is like about 540 millimeters, like pretty long. I was looking at like the history of it, like from 2012 on Slow Twitch, say, when people were putting their like reach coordinates, like there were guys who were like 6'2", and their reach was only like 45 centimeters.
Yeah,
they were writing down. Like that's a huge difference, and it's interesting to look back, and you can kind of see that in sort of Jan's position. His reach isn't that long just because his elbows are right here. It was Magnus's. I don't even know what his would be.
Yeah.
Like 60
And
centimeters.
it's funny because when you look at Magnus, I mean, and again, you can make an argument of this, but it definitely helps the run, right? I mean, you can almost say that if you were to just, rotate that image 90 degrees, you can see he's getting closer to a running position.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. I mean, obviously, I would say that they're doing it for several reasons, but I know that it's helping them run off the bike better. They're getting not necessarily the upper body, but just getting, again, looking at the tilt. The pelvic tilt, but really the forwardness of the pelvis. I think that's keeping those hip flexors from shortening up, and again, running off the bike, as everyone knows that's on here, it's going to listen to this, is important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, I mean, I would think if you measured sort of this angle, kind of his hip angle at 12 o'clock, it would be a pretty wide angle compared to maybe prior generations. Because he's also got, I mean, his stack is higher. We're seeing a trend of higher stack too.
Yeah, and again, I think that's for comfort. I mean, again, I think it's for comfort for sure.
Yeah. And what else here? So we talked about pelvic tilt a little bit, hip rotation.
Pelvic tilt, yeah, arm angle. Again, I think that, to me, that's a game changer. I think that's a positive thing. I mean, we're seeing the market sort of adopt that, and again, it's the Tetsuo and Tri-Rig. I mean, they have some great products out there. And when I say great products, not only are they functionally, I mean, excuse me, they work, but they are safe. I mean, in terms of I mean, they're not just put together, and I wouldn't recommend something unless I thought it was going to be attached to your bike in a very safe way. You
Mm-hmm.
want to be somewhat skeptical of anything else, but I mean, Profile Designs come out with some adapters for their products, some extenders,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to be careful with that when anyone who's manufacturing those. You want to make sure that they are, because there's a lot of weight
Right.
going into that, and as you can imagine, if that breaks while weighted, nothing's going to come good of that.
For sure. Um, and I like what you said about how, I never thought about how it's more comfortable to keep your elbows closer together when the aero bars are tilted.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's funny. You're disengaging the delts. At least
Mm-hmm.
there's three delts. The one, the acromion delt, which is the one in the middle. Yeah, but it because that's the one that feels like it's
Mm-hmm.
really tight. But that seems to lessen the tension, uh, and you can do that just by mimicking it, and in a chair, and you'll see that you feel like, yeah, that just feels like it's not as my delts are not as tight feeling, and especially for somebody who has tight delts, or I say overdeveloped, but just developed delts. Yeah.
Right. And then while we're kind of on the subject of getting narrow up front, getting your elbows together, what are your thoughts about kind of closing the area between the aero bars? I know that Tetsuo kind of does it, and I customize a cockpit where it's like that. And how important is that? Are you thinking as a relate? And why are we doing it, or why are we seeing certain athletes do that?
I
What do
think,
you think?
yeah, it is. So not just for comfort, but it also, you're of course, given the first thing that's entering into the wind, the airspace that you're crashing into, uh, are that, is not are that, but is that area where you have your arms together. And I think it definitely creates, yeah, it's a smaller surface area, and it's not just one big giant surface area as like your chest and
Mm-hmm.
your shoulders. So
Right.
I think that's the reason why it is faster, at least in theory. And obviously some people, and of course, wind tunnel testing is gonna, for what it's worth, it's so far it's shown that it is a faster position. Yeah, faster
Yeah.
setup.
And there's also an emphasis on kind of filling this space in here, kind of in between the arms and the helmet. And it seems like everybody's trying to just turn this part of their body into one big fairing that'll kind of direct everything
Yeah, so
back.
you're
Um,
yeah, so yeah, that's right. I mean, so you're trying to push, the low pressure air further back before it gets too turbulent.
mhm.
um, I mean, it's haphazard, for the most part, but at least you're trying something better than just it going right into your chest.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, having the water bottle there obviously serves another purpose of having it closer to you, and not really having to, come off too much of your bike to get your nutrition in, which is, vital.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so I guess we can move on to kind of modern technology to calculate CDA.
Yeah. Yeah, I put that in there. I threw that in there just because, I don't think this is the first of its kind, but I mentioned Iro. Uh, that that there's technology out there now that can basically, find the delta of a change in a simulation,
Hmm.
and what it does, it's very unique. It basically, you can take a picture of your some from the side and from the front,
Hmm.
and you can play around with the simulation, change your arm position, and change. It's really neat. Change your arm position. You can change obviously your just the way your back angle is, and it will crunch out and tell you what your delta is of your CDA, because it's not so much important to know what your CDA is as much as and hey, whatever my baseline
Right.
CDA is, it's the delta, right? It's like, man, this is going to save me X number of minutes or X watts. That's what you're looking for. That's the information that's real. That's to me, that's the most important, right? And so it does that, and I think as more as 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 more and more of this comes out, I mean, people are gonna you won't have to go to a wind tunnel.
Hmm.
People are going to have some type of application that will test as accurately as a wind tunnel test. I mean, within limits, right? I mean,
Yep.
a good analogy to wind tunnels to me is playing football in Indianapolis, their stadium, and you know where the football is going to do, right? I mean, there's not there's not this haphazard wind going on versus outdoors. You don't know what that
Hmm.
ball is going to do. So it's for what it's worth. I mean, wind tunnel is. Yeah, I'm getting off a tangent here, but wind tunnel is worthy of itself. Um, it's good marketing.
Sure. Very controlled conditions is
Yeah,
what you're
yeah, it
testing
is.
in.
It's very controlled, but I mean, can you make an argument that it help that they do? Yeah, I think there's
Hmm.
an argument, but there's also an argument that says it's field testing is where it needs to be.
Mm.
But
Yeah, that's interesting. So, do you have? Is that how is Iro spelled? Is it IRO?
it's AI row.
Got
So
it.
it's yeah. I used to pronounce it AI row, and maybe it's still pronounced that, but I told the A is sort of silent, so it's AI as an AI row RO,
Okay.
and it's for fitters. I mean, it's really
Hmm.
cool because it's for fitters. Um, as a service for fitters to use with their athletes that they fit.
And then
And
do you have
go
it?
ahead.
I was
No,
just asking if you use it.
I'm considering it.
Got it.
There's things that I worry about. Because it is another hour um, in this place, and not necessarily that's not a bad thing, but it is, man. We're talking about a 4 hour
Right.
appointment, so um, yeah, there's a lot going on there. So I'm hesitant for that reason, but it definitely it's a cool tool, and it's also a tool that you can play around with different helmets, and again see the CDA based on the helmet for you. So you can try out different helmets. I say try. You can simulate different helmets and see what the difference in CDA is based on your profile that you have.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it would definitely have to be like a separate service from a fit, and
Yeah, I
then
know it.
like going to the wind tunnel.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's very similar to that, and that's why I'm hesitant to pull the trigger on it, because it is. I mean, it adds more time to already something that takes a good chunk of time
right.
for
And
me.
then Dimitri had a good question. He said, I'm surprised by how much variation there is in positioning across the pros as pictured in this slide. They're all presumably optimizing based on data to maximize efficiency, so I would have expected the methodology to converge towards some common optimal as the sport matures and more data comes in. Why hasn't that happened? And what does that mean for age groupers? Should we be looking at what pros are doing to inform our own decisions?
That gets into individuality. I mean, I mean, some people just feel like they just think I'm faster in this position and no one's going to tell me otherwise. There's a little bit of that.
Hmm.
There's a little bit of again, it's individual. It's a hard one. I mean, it is. I mean, it is. It are variations of that, but uh, I think the getting the hands up to the chin, at least to the chin, to me is a positive thing. So there are some things that I feel like, in my opinion, that are gimmies. If you have the means, and what I mean by that is that if the bike has the means to do that, or you decide that you need to purchase a third party, just components to make it happen, and to me to me it's a good purchase. I mean, it's not cheap, but uh, yeah, it's a hard one, but I think that it's very individual, right? I mean,
Yeah.
as you know, I mean, some people, it just that they are in a position that they just feel like this is the strongest position that I'm in, and it might not be the fastest, but I just feel the strongest, and
Right.
and I'm yeah.
And I think this is a good time to bring up this slide here. And let me just say that you should not be looking at what the pros are doing, because there's an assumption that they know, everybody assumes they know what they're doing, but they really just oftentimes don't. And I think this is a good example. We're talking about two of arguably the best triathletes, just from a championship winning perspective ever. You know, Christian Blumenfeld, Gustav Iden, 2024 at Kona. I don't. One of them DNF'd, I think. Another one was throwing up the whole ride, and because
Yeah,
they changed their position, like very close to Kona, and they got really low, and the position was not sustainable. I think both of them had GI distress, but my point was that they adopted these pretty radical positions, much different than we've ever seen them in, and they didn't do well. And then after this race, they went back to their old positions. So don't do that. You can kind of see, I mean, they're
yeah,
really low, really stretched out. What's going
yeah.
on
I
in
mean,
the
his
shoulders?
line of sight is non-existent. I mean,
Right.
at least he's looking down. I don't think he can look through that helmet.
Right. Yeah.
And
And
again,
then,
that I want to stress that. I mean, because again, you want to be able to look at least somewhat in front of you. You want to say, hey, is there a car coming, or is there a car stopped? I've seen a cyclist T-bone a car because he was looking down, and I never would love not want to see that again. But
mhm.
again, it's very important. I mean, to be able to look out and sustain that, as best as that person can. I mean, but you don't want to compromise that so much for the sake of aerodynamics. And again, that's a philosophy thing, but I think it can almost go without saying, right, for some people. But you look at the top right video, excuse me, of the image, and I mean, that's common sense is out there. Again, he probably has a full free reign of the road, um,
Yeah.
whereas age groupers don't. You know,
That's right. I mean, Kona, it can be a little bit hectic. Peloton's form quite a
oh
lot.
yeah, that's true.
But with him, yeah, I mean, they were up there. They don't have to worry about being passed all the time or passing, etc.
Passing, yeah,
And then this was the same course. This was laid low, slightly more maybe of a tradition. I mean, not traditional in like the historical sense, but he broke the bike course record here. Did not run well because he apparently wanted to get the bike course record. And just by the laws of thermodynamics, I'm sure his core temp was 104 degrees when he got off the bike. So, walk, jog to the finish. But he broke 4 hours at Kona. So,
yeah,
pretty aerodynamic. Obviously, you can put out a lot of power. 300, I think he averaged like 315 ish watts. So, decent power output in heat like that for 4 hours.
yeah.
Um,
Impressive, obviously, very impressive.
yeah. But another, just compare that to to Dimitri's question. What works for one person won't work for another, and even if a position looks aerodynamic, it might not be, because there was one pro athlete on the team who had a position like this at a couple of races, and we did a retroactive CDA analysis, and he was putting out a lot of watts, wasn't going as fast as we would expect, and his CDA was like over 0.25, and then went to a more maybe traditional position, like, I don't know, something maybe more, honestly, probably more similar to that. Not exactly like any of these, but
Yeah.
CDA was down to like 0.215 for most of the next race when he was riding solo. So, you don't know what the air is doing based on your shoulder, so many factors, equipment and body position.
Yeah, and you're right. And again, but I want to say that there are some things I think that are worthy of doing, and maybe that's where we go. But
yeah, I think that's good to go there, like the
yeah,
general principles that you kind of adhere to now,
I
where
mean,
we
I think,
know you'll be fast.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think again, you want to be sensitive to this, but what I mean is you want to be, in terms of just how close you can get to your elbows.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be honest and think, okay, can I sustain this? And or is it closing off, as you mentioned, and I think in some space, you mentioned about just constricting one's breathing, and I think that can happen too if you get it too tight in terms of the elbow width.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the goal would be as close as you can and sustainable, and it feels, again, sustainable. And I think to me, sustainable is a good limit test. I mean, it's yeah,
Definitely. It has to be sustainable, or else you won't.
yeah, exactly. You won't keep it, right?
Yeah. Um, so I know we talked about most of these concepts. We kind of covered this. So does anybody have any questions on bike fit, or anything else on general principles of fitting a fat to try to optimize aerodynamics, etc.?
If you I got to go back to work. Am I going to be able to find this recording somewhere of the rest of the discussion?
Yes. Yep.
Where is that going to be located?
I'll upload it to YouTube, and I'll send it out on the Slack.
Okay, sweet. Thank you, guys.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So does anybody have any questions on anything thus far?
Yeah, so the 20%, the bike aero, as we said, I mean, there's a lot of things out there. Again, we can talk about, I think you wanted to talk about boundary layer, controlled layering. Again, the idea here is to make the wind turbulent just enough where it's controllable, and controllable in the sense of you're trying to get it past you before it gets uncontrollable. And so this is the part of the air that's going right closest to the surface of whatever it is that you're looking at. It could be you, it could be a rim, it could be the bike, but that's the idea, is to try to control that layer of air in such a way that you're controlling it, but it's a little bit it's turbulent, but it's controlled turbulence, where you're not trying to where you're creating, you're lessening that suction of that pull that you get when it's too much turbulence. When the high pressure and the low pressure air meet each other. So wheels out there, they're marketed to control that. And of course, I think everyone knows Zips. Their dimple system. That's really what that's about. And there's other manufacturers out there that do that. And the one on the top right, uh, yeah, that one is where it's got a little bit of a fairing, and it's got just asymmetric profile
Hmm.
again to try to slice through the air and control the layer of air that's going on that's hitting that wheel. Yeah.
Yeah, the reason this was kind of interesting to talk about is everybody, a lot of athletes on the team are just they're engineers and they're obsessed with the latest and greatest. And frankly, the pros on the team are always looking for a little edge. So we try to be on the cutting edge and try to understand, how do we find those last five
Yeah.
watts or whatever. And I know that a couple of athletes were riding these at the world champs. And so it's just it's interesting to see. I mean, we'll see if they grow in popularity.
Yeah.
I don't know if they actually make a difference. To what extent is it
Yeah.
marketing? That's
Of
always
course,
the
it's
question.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it is, but I'm sure. I mean, the rub is that they're a little bit heavier than a lighter wheel, so it takes a little bit more to get them up to speed for
Hmm.
what that's worth. I mean, if you have a tight course where there's a lot of turns, or I say a mini turns, then it might not be the best wheel um,
Hmm.
for that. But also for someone who's not very heavy, for someone who's small and not very heavy,
Hmm.
a wheel like that, I mean, even though they market it towards where you're not going to get a lot of side to side, just bumping with the air. There's going to be some. I mean, it's inevitable. Um,
Sure.
it, when the wind's hitting you from the side, and if you're not very heavy, you're going to feel it and you're going to fight it.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah,
The benefits of these probably are relative to
yeah,
how much one weighs, how much power they're putting out, how fast they're going,
yeah,
etc.
exactly. And all those testing that's been done on wheels, and there's been a lot of testing. I mean, you can see they do save watts, but it's usually at a faster speed. you
Hmm.
know, that's when you see the really benefits of those of most of the wheels. And I'm not saying you shouldn't buy those. I mean, it's better than just an open regular wheel, but it is an investment for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, is a typical 60 or 90 millimeter front wheel really going to be slower than this in most conditions? Like, I don't know. I don't think there's
Yeah.
enough data on it, but at the very least, it's interesting. And this concept of boundary layer is, I kind of think that this is what Zip was going for with their golf ball dimpled wheels. Even though those supposedly didn't test super necessarily
No.
faster back in the day. Um, I don't know. Obviously, the Ultron is claiming that these are faster, so we'll see. And then I definitely wanted to point out this product, the Hydro Easy Gains. I don't know if you've seen. I know a bunch of athletes on the team have adopted this. They like it. It's and the idea I think is kind of similar. It's just that it's acting as a fairing, reduces the wake out the back.
Yeah, yeah, you're trying to keep that low pressure further back away from you. Uh, Makes sense.
Hmm.
I think to me that is a worthy thing to consider for the people that feel comfortable, feel confident, and it obviously takes practice about getting your hands off getting your hand off the bar to get that bottle.
Right. I know that. I
Yeah.
spoke with a couple athletes who have pretty short arms and they just they just couldn't reach it.
Yeah.
So one athlete sort of raised the bottle a little bit and hopefully it's still aerodynamic because then there's a space in between, the holder and the kind of the bottle itself and then somebody else just isn't using the bottle, but is using it as a fairing. So uh, it's
There's a wheel out there. Get back to the wheels. There's a wheel brand out there called Scope.
mhm.
I don't know if you've heard of those, but Scope, they're one of the fastest wheels tested, and they have this fish scale type texture to them. It's SCOPE, uh, and I don't know if they're intended to think, hey, our it's just that their profile, that wheel is very unique,
Mm,
and it's been tested as one of the faster wheels.
interesting. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah,
Scope wheels. Um,
and I don't, again, I don't know if they were trying to say, hey, we're using biomimicry to, on our
mhm.
wheels to make it, the fish scale. I
Right.
don't think that that's the case, but anyway, I think they came out with a wheel set that seems to be pretty fast,
Cool.
pretty
Well,
expensive too.
I I
Yeah,
bet.
very expensive.
Yeah, wheels are a little bit
Yeah, exactly.
outrageous at this point,
They are.
but yeah, I see them here. Yeah, they literally do look like fish scales, a bass on the side. Interesting. Um, and then what else is there to talk about with bike aerodynamics?
Yeah, I think I think tire pressure optimization is a good
Mhm,
thing, and I think more tire condition. I've seen a lot of people come, ready, prepared, but their tire condition is not the
mhm,
greatest. And I mean, having new tires, I mean, it's like, man, I mean, you know, again, you get new tires on your car, and your car feels faster, and it's just like and it probably is. I mean, it's the same case with your bike, and I mean, yeah, it is an expense, but it's not a crazy expense to save a few watts, um, to get new tires for your event. I think that's huge.
yeah, and there's definitely, a trend towards wider tires, wider
Hmm.
rims, running at lower PSI to reduce rolling resistance, and that's been a game changer, I think. And when you look at the data, the difference between a good tire at a proper PSI and, a even a mid-range tire, like compare, I don't know, the Corsa Speeds or the GP 5000s to, like a mid-range Pirelli, it could be like 10 watts per tire, which is
Yeah,
outrageous, but
yeah, I know it.
it matters. So definitely talk to your
Yeah,
coach about tires.
yeah, they definitely talk about tires and the condition. Again, I think that's huge. That's a
Big
big
time.
thing. And again, the tire size, yeah. I mean, you see on road bikes now they're getting 28 to 32C, and that's fine for road bikes. But you get that too big. I mean, that's probably not getting super aerodynamic for for triathlon bike. But I mean, a lot of those
Hmm.
wheel sets are optimized for 25C.
Hmm.
Some of them are 28, but I don't know. I mean, I would say 28 is a good max, for aero.
I think that makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
And one interesting kind of newer tire that some athletes have been running, especially in windy conditions or athletes who are very very fast, is the Continental Aero 111s, and these are a little bit different than the GP 5000s, just in the way that these grooves are created in the tires. And the idea is that rolling resistance is a little bit reduced in these tires, but they are substantially more aerodynamic and durable. So, I know one athlete ran this at Cozumel and liked it. And, there's probably an argument for running something like this at Oceanside where the road surface is just like I don't know. Flats are more common, but if you're going fast, supposedly these are more aerodynamic. So,
Hmm.
it's I don't know how you choose one over the other, honestly. If you're just typical athlete looking to buy one tire, it's probably a wash. But I do think that, arguably in windy conditions or when you need to be careful about durability, the 111s could be a good move. Um, and then what else is on our list here? So I think we talked about rolling resistance. What do you think? Is there anything else that you think we should cover before we move on to the before and after?
Yeah, I think, I think in this answers a question, like if we can go down a list of things that seem to be worthy of improving. I think again, I can, and this gets into the fit cases maybe, but the is bike fit is should be on the top of that list. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that just as a bicycle fitter, but I mean it, it's very important. For again, sustainability. I mean, you bought this crazy nice bike, this sick bike, and you're not able to stay in the aero position for long. I mean, that's not fast.
Mm-hmm.
And it I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think you owe it to yourself to make yourself faster. Um, and not have to pay thousands of dollars.
Right. You don't have to buy
Yeah.
a new Scope
Yeah.
wheel that's 4 grand
Yeah,
or a
that's
new one.
right.
Yeah, a fraction of that. Um, yeah, that's a good point. Fit is number one. It's worth the money, 100%. So do we want to move on to some before and after
Yeah,
case studies?
yeah, you asked about, just, maybe providing this and, that first case study, that right there is somebody who's on the size cycle on the right. Sort of he's been on his current bike and
Mm-hmm.
versus the one on the right where, um, we tweaked the position of the size cycle and just found what he felt like. Yeah, this feels the most powerful. And of course, we're talking about somebody being on a stand and get that, but riding long enough where
Mm-hmm.
he or she can feel the difference if I do make a change or staying with that change and just seeing it. But um, a little bit more forward, definitely more forward. Uh, his pelvis is a little bit more anteriorly tilted, and usually when you do that, for the most part, your spine lengthens, and you can see
Mm-hmm.
that he has a longer spine. And to me,
Yeah.
that's why I think the bikes are also coming with more needing more reach,
Mm-hmm.
and not just because it's more forward, but we're learning that hey, that tilted pelvis, man, it really lengthen it should. I mean, it'll lengthen your spine. Not that it needs to be table flat, but it just needs to be lengthened, and that goes a lot into hip flexors. And also GI issues if you do have some is you're closing up your hips too much and you're obviously just your gut doesn't like all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are good
And you can
points.
see also in that one, and then even on this one here, on both of that one, is that I'm trying to get that hand position up.
Yeah.
Um,
This
yeah,
this one, let me just say that this one, the improvement was pretty incredible as it relates to power. Even though this looks, it, Chris was able to put out probably 10 more watts at a lower heart rate after this, and was able to crush it at Ironman Cozumel after you fit him. So,
yeah,
this is one instance where a bike fit absolutely transformed the rider's performance. Like free speed, truly, and enhanced comfort. Um,
and I
so,
would say, Conrad, for that, I mean, of course, as you know, Chris is a great athlete, and it really came down to making the bike allowing him to be longer in his spine,
Yeah.
and instead of choking him up,
Right.
choking his upper body up, and that's the big thing on that one. And as we did, I mean, we took him more out forward, and and because his spine was longer, I did definitely felt like, I mean, we also pushed him forward his saddle because he was using a Woe saddle, and we got him a little bit more forward.
Hmm.
I felt that was beneficial, but just to
Definitely.
get him further forward in general. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
This was
didn't
a
know.
good
I'm
one.
glad he told me that he felt great. Um, he didn't give
Yeah.
me specifics. That's great to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I think the bike immediately he felt better, and it was just truly a game
Yeah,
changer. Here's Julia. I think this one's a little bit more
yeah.
subtle, but
Yeah, it's more subtle, and I wanted to show this one because this gets a little bit into just being maybe getting a bike that's off the shelf. And of course, this is a Cortana Roo. It's not really you getting off the shelf so much, but it's a new bike for her. Um, you're
hmm.
getting a cockpit that is what it comes with, and that was the most that we could get in terms of the tilt of
Hmm.
out of that cockpit. So I wanted to show this as saying, hey, I mean, sometimes you just got to deal with what you have, unless you want to go big and spend a lot of money. I mean, it's not a bad position at all. I mean, 4 years ago, I mean, this is what the pros look like.
Right.
Um, but yeah.
I mean, but even if we just look at the changes, I mean, looks like she's more over the bottom
Oh
bracket,
yeah,
can probably
huge.
put out more power and
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That was a big thing. Huge.
more anteriorly, it looks like rotated pelvis and
Yeah,
longer back,
definitely.
like you've been saying.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's because of the pelvic tilt forward
Hmm.
for
So even if it
sure.
looks subtle, it could still make a big difference.
Hmm. Yep. And this is another one, the new bike purchased, Ventum. Uh, again, just pushed him a lot more forward. Felt, and a new triathlete, just new in terms of like he just bought that bike, and I think he was going to do an event the next day. I mean, it was like, man, I need to get in to see you, and fortunately, I had that, I made the time, but yeah, but it helped him, and again, that's you can see that he definitely has. Well, if you blow up the image there, you can see that he's got some developed delts. I mean,
Yep.
he's a strong guy, and I got him pretty tight, and also started, I definitely made the tilt as much as
Hmm.
we can get the tilt, of that cockpit, and that
That's
difference
good.
maker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So we can move on to some Q&A real fast. I know we're at hour 16, but I know that John had a good question. So he's like, does it make sense to change up your position for different race types? Any benefits there? I've done sprints to a full Ironman this year in the same position and was wondering if it would be more optimal to adjust for shorter or longer races.
I think, in my opinion, I think, I wouldn't go crazy and
Yeah.
change a lot of things. To me, I think if it's optimal for
Right.
all the events. Could you, say for instance, you've tried different, elbow widths, and you thought, okay, I'm going to do a sprint. I mean, it would be fine to me to bring that. That's a small adjustment. I feel like that we would
Hmm.
be worthy, and it's sustainable for that event. At least I think so. It would be, but for a long course, yeah. I mean, you want to think, what's sustainable for a long course. you know, um, And I think the sprint distance to Olympic distance, to me, that I think when you get into those, I think you can make a little bit of sacrifice, but not. Obviously, you don't want to diminish your ability to produce power, but you definitely want to think, how can I make some small tweaks here, that I wouldn't make otherwise. But I don't know. How do you feel about that, Conrad?
I don't think that one should make
Yeah,
any radical adjustments. Like you're
yeah,
training in a position,
sure.
and I don't think a fast position and a powerful position are necessarily exclusive. Um, I think that you can be fast and powerful, and that's what you want. And you need to be able to put out power efficient. If you can put out a lot of power in an Ironman and be pretty aero, it's like the concept are the same. Like it's not like
Hmm.
you're going to benefit from being super aero in an Olympic versus an Ironman. Like you have to put out power for either a really high amount of power for a short period of time, in which case you want a powerful position, or
Sure.
a moderate amount of power for a really long time, in which case you still want a powerful position. So,
Yes.
I think that you find a position that fits and you just become one with the bike. That's
Hmm.
my opinion. But to your point, yeah, little adjustments. I do think like something like the elbow
Yeah,
or
small
shoulder
adjustments.
fatigue. Yeah,
Yeah, small
I
adjustments. I
think that's
think.
okay.
Yeah, I do
Agreed.
too. Yeah.
Um,
And
and
you can also make an argument that different helmets, if
mhm.
you had multiple helmets, I mean, one that's not as breathable, sure. I mean, for a short course, I mean, not short course, but for a sprint, Olympic, if you feel like that helmet is faster, and it probably, it might be, it's got, I mean, there's some fast helmets that are vented, but
Mhm.
um, you just think, man, this helmet is faster than, yeah, that would be another compromise.
Yeah, like helmet vent. That's a good point. When we think about something like Cozumel comes to mind, or even Kona, where it's really hot, and the limiter is core body temp.
Hmm.
Evaporative cooling effect is a real phenomenon. Not to mention wind, and if a long tail helmet works really well at 0 degrees of yaw, well, what if it's like Cozumel, where there are crosswinds at coming at you 25 miles an hour the entire ride because it's a diamond shaped course and there are crosswinds this way? Then it's like actually a long tail helmet is going to be slower in those conditions because the yaw is going to be like 15 degrees or more for
Hmm.
70% of the race. So we actually want to go shorter tail for that, and probably more vented. It's probably a worthy wager if you need to keep your core temp down. But definitely a lot of variables, and it's always every race is a new analysis. Um, and then just if we can kind of blast through some of these questions that athletes put on Slack. What are the biggest differences in findings between wind tunnel tested aerodynamics and field or real life? Are there things that work well in the wind tunnel that are ineffective in real life, or vice versa? And that's from Jackson, that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great question to ask, and it's an honest question. The things I think of are helmets, and wheels. I think those are tested really well, and they can give you X number of watts. But one, are you able to handle the bike with X wheel set, or are
Mm-hmm.
you able to
Yeah.
sustain a head position with the helmet in question? So even though it might give you a lot of savings, it says it's going to give you a lot of savings. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you outside. Um, uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, how would you answer that question?
I think it's just sustainability of
Yeah,
position.
yeah, I think
And
so too.
I think that's a big one. And also, like, like what are you testing in? You go to the wind tunnel, you have to consider sort of like what I talked about with the tail. Um, if a long tail generally doesn't do as well when the crosswinds
Hmm.
are coming hard this way. It can actually be slower than just a normal road helmet sometimes, especially if the athlete can't hold the position. So if you're just measuring at 0 degrees yaw in the wind tunnel, well, that's not necessarily going to
Yeah,
translate in real life.
exactly. Yeah,
And then yeah, just
exactly.
keeping that head low is another thing. It's like um, it can be tough to maintain that wind tunnel position in real life. Um, and then Kim had a question about so she's fairly short and is having a lot of trouble finding a bike that fits. Do you know of any tri bike brands or models that work for smaller athletes?
Yeah, there are a few. I feel like that I've sort of referenced. One would be, I think Canyon makes a very small bike, aero bike,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's another brand out of Illinois. It's called Premier Bike, and
Yeah, that's right.
they make a very small. Well, at least they're sensitive to shorter athletes. So that would be another brand that I would recommend to consider. And it's really that it's not that expensive. I mean they're under 7,000. I mean, if that considers expensive, I mean it is expensive, but it's not like you're not
Right.
like thinking, hey, it's going to be a 10,000 or $12,000 bike. Um, for a short for a small company that really believes in their product. I mean, that's pretty reasonable cost.
Yeah, I recall like a few years ago, there was like an aero bike shootout, and the premier tactical bike, it uh, it came out on top, or at least up there with
Mhm.
Cervelo. Obviously, that's wind tunnel, just the bike frame,
Yeah,
but
you're
still,
right, it
it's a
did.
fast bike. Hmm.
It come out, it did, and yeah, they're very proud of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, And then Abby had a bunch of good questions. I think we covered most of these. I mean, what are the most common mistakes you see athletes making when they think they're becoming more aero, but actually increasing drag? Does anything pop out?
Bringing their elbows in too much, I
Uh
think
huh.
that could be a catch. I mean, if someone says, "Hey, you need to bring the pads in," I mean, most of us, when someone says that to us, and it depends on who says it, but we don't go to thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to go just 1 centimeter. It's like they're gonna, we're gonna think,
Right.
man, I'm gonna squeeze myself into this little bitty
Mm.
space. I think that, and again, um, I think also too is again be honest with yourself with that saddle. I mean, if you find yourself moving around, or if you feel like, man, my lower back is starting to ache, it aches all the time. I mean, it could be a posture issue, and typically,
Mm.
if it's a posture issue, it's coming from the saddle's discomfort, the discomfort from the saddle.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
That this is a good point to bring up because I know many athletes they can start complaining about lower back pain, and my answer is make sure the saddle isn't too high, make sure you're rotating
yeah,
forward, like your pelvis forward. We don't want that lumbar spine being super bent or
yeah,
but
exactly.
so
In a
you
very flexed
saddled is what you
position.
said.
Yeah, saddle to me to me it's the first thing to check off.
Okay.
Is the saddle is this most of the time the saddle is the culprit. I mean, it could be the cockpit. The cockpit could be squeezing the person back, um, but as I think as in some of those before and afters. I mean, you can see that sort of happened on a few, but it's typically because the saddle is just not the right. It's not the right shape. Um, it's just not. It's an ill-fitted saddle. But it could be a saddle that works. It just might not be in the right position. But I think more often than not, it's probably just not the right saddle.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think we covered the other questions Abby had pretty well.
Hmm.
But so in the So if athletes want to book a fit with you, how do they reach you?
Yeah, they can reach me by email. It's Todd at nordmeyercycling.com, as you see there. The phone number is 651-615-651-8155. That would be the best ways to get a hold of me. You can schedule an appointment online on the scheduler, uh, which is fine. I mean, I'm going to get that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to have a conversation, which beforehand, or schedule it personally, which is fine. Welcome that. You can call me or email me, and we can set up a time to talk.
Sounds good. Well,
Yeah.
I think that covers it. Does anybody have any last questions or thoughts? Nope. Well, thanks for this webinar. We
Yeah.
a lot of good info.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you, Conrad, for letting me be a guest on this, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk
Yeah.
soon.
Okay, I'll talk to you
Yep.
soon.
See everybody. Bye bye.